So Clavicular, what do you think about Clav? Because to me, when he first like came on as like this new internet personality, I was like, oh great, here's like another one of these red pill personalities, for lack of a better term. But he's kind of markedly different than a lot of them in various ways. His focus seems to be on looks maxing rather than all these other random markers, and he's also not explicitly political whatsoever. What's your
I feel like he's not. The first time I saw him was that like Knowles interview he did, because I saw that clip go viral on Twitter where Knowles was like going off about trans people, and he says like, you just spiked your cortisol thinking about trans people. So I thought he, like, if anything, was like left leaning, or at least like fully apolitical.
Right.
I feel like he probably is more conservative
for sure
than liberal, just because, or at least he's like, the way he talks about women, he's obviously sexist and stuff. I think it's random that like he's part of the like the red pill movement. You know, I think it's just like, I think he's heartwarming to a lot of incel types in the sense of like he has like that incel personality, but obviously he's good looking. So I feel like they just find it interesting to see someone like them in the body of someone not like them, like go about the world and have this like fantasy where they can just like pull women all day.
He uses the chronically online language and lingo, and it's like he's playing the game, so to speak, that a lot of even like these red pill incel influencer types, like the sort of language that they use, Chad, Stacey's, you know, maxing.
I feel like I learned a lot of the language through watching this, because he kept calling people subhuman, and I thought that was so mean. I was like, why is he calling JD Vance subhuman? Because it seems kind of like off-brand for him to be so angry, because he comes off very calm. I think
the term subhuman,
it was from like that 4chan thing of like Chad, Stacey. So I learned that from this. But, they were talking about that guy who pulled into some fast food drive-through, and he was pantsless.
Oh, right.
And then he killed himself the next day. And then Clav was just like, I think killing yourself is stupid, and you can't just like pull up to a drive-through without your pants on. It's sexual harassment.
Yeah, he was.
So I felt like that weirdly made him progressive. Versus how most of his audience would probably talk about it.
Well, he's the same way with like anti-vax stuff. He says that like anti-vax is stupid. He's like, if you want
because he's so into like PubMed and stuff.
So he's like he's a believer in science or what have you. But you know what? It is inconsistent though, because one of the things that he said, he was like, I really don't like, or they're talking about body count and whether or not that matters, and a big reason as to why he thinks it matters in the case of women is because of this idea of pair bonding. And he's like, it's just a matter of statistics, like if your goal is a long-term relationship. But all of those same statistics that exist about having a ton of partners and
it's about like animals or voles or something.
No, there is stuff in regards to humans. There's this one guy, I'll have to circle back to find him, but he studies specifically human mating and everything like that.
David Buss?
He's a PhD. No. He's blonde. I forget what his name is. He's not in the red pill community.
Okay.
He's he shares like some, I guess you could say, views, but he definitely doesn't share their prescriptions, and he definitely critiques them more often than not. But a lot of these stats about like women having a ton of partners and then being less successful in long-term relationships also exist in the case of men. So it's just like an inconsistency in terms of like where the quote-unquote stats are. And I think that Clavicular, I mean, he also just, I think, grants too much of this idea that like for instance, he says that spending time with a girl but not streaming it is like a waste of time.
He's like, you're going on a bowling date but not streaming it. What's the ROI?
What's the ROI is the phrase, but it's like, why can't the ROI just be an enjoyment of it? You know, if you're doing all of these things to quote unquote better your life, like what is exactly the goal? And if the goal is, you know, your own sort of self-happiness, why can't you be, for instance, someone like Andrew Callahan who says he's content with how he looks? Do you think that was like a dishonest answer to say that he genuinely is content with how he looks?
It's hard to say, because like I feel like most people would probably go, maybe I would change this small thing. So I assume he's being like slightly comedic or
Right.
just, you know what I mean, completely like stonewalling him.
Right.
He's probably generally content,
Right.
right?
Yeah, I agree. Like like I'm sure Andrew, like he does even personal things to just
Yeah.
make sure he looks okay.
But it's
and
probably not
decent or
something that
whatever.
like possesses his mind for
Not-
like
yeah.
fixations. But I was
Especially if
yeah.
you're a really successful YouTuber, he's got 3.5 million views. He's like
Exactly.
he's regarded as like a pretty
And he's not ugly
big
or anything.
journalist. Yeah.
Yeah.
He if you have all of those things going for you, I'm sure your personal looks doesn't.
Yeah.
You have all these people who love you. Yeah, I'm sure that is.
It would probably
hardly
get in the
an
way if he was
afterthought.
better looking, because I feel like comedians also fare better when they're not super good looking,
Right,
like guys
yeah.
and stuff. But I kept wondering while watching this, I was like, I do wonder what Clav enjoys, but because he doesn't seem to actually enjoy the streaming, like he says it makes him anxious and he needs to like drink to get through it and stuff because he doesn't really like talking to people.
Yeah.
So clearly he does that just for the pursuit of money. And then he says he doesn't really enjoy sleeping with the girls, so he like looks max is not for that. So I was wondering like what the actual enjoyment he gets. Maybe it's just like he says it's not vanity, but it must be for the
Yeah.
joy of like looking at himself. You know what I mean? But he also doesn't come off
feeling as though
Yeah.
you are successful in all of the meters and markers of success that
Yeah.
are I mean, some of them I'm sure like career and everything like that can be a personal goal that stems, from within, but like the some of these other markers, it's like those are almost like societally imposed. And so like for instance, he talks a lot about like you're just going to get made fun of if like you do this and you're not good looking, or you're
Yeah.
going to be perceived differently. But it's like,
Which is true.
which is
Yeah.
true. And there is like, he mentions the fact that there's like data and everything like that, looking better will get you further in certain settings. But it's like, you're almost granting that like we should value the perception of others. Cause like, what if you are truly content
Yeah.
with who you are? And maybe this is a bit of too like therapy speak or woke speak, but it's like, if you don't even grant those as being, like things that you do care about or whatever, then all of a sudden your contentment can be just as like, you can be just as fulfilled and just as content as someone who does care about those and has achieved it,
Yeah, it's hard to discern like what he thinks people should care about prescriptively and then what he thinks like descriptively they do care about. So he's
Right.
like, you should look max because it helps you in like the arenas of like dating, work, all these things. But then like you said, he's saying he doesn't actually care about other people or
Right.
socializing with them. So is he only looks maxing and ascending because he's saying like based on these superficial things it helps, or is he saying like people even in an ideal world like should care about those things?
Right.
I think he probably just really likes, also it comes off like researching, honestly.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
I bet that's his interest, is like staying home, researching, like studying.
Right.
Like, I think he's a nerd.
he maybe, yeah, totally. He
Yeah.
definitely seems like pretty chronically online, and maybe he likes the perception of being, almost like an expert in this field. And maybe that's to some degree
Yeah.
the frustration of like, why aren't you asking about my expertise?
Yeah.
He wants to be perceived as like the ultimate,
Like an intellectual kind of.
Yeah, and he's like, it's not about this, it's like about just objectivity and results.
Yeah.
But there's almost like an underlying normativity with even what you talk about, like results to what aim.
Yeah.
You know?
And he says in this interview, for instance, because Andrew asks him like, who do you get more who do you tend to get anxious around? And he was saying like high status people, and then it cuts to a clip of him with Andrew Tate, which I feel like is telling, because it's like, okay, it's not just that you feel like you're hanging out with Andrew Tate because it helps your stream. Like you actually think like he's more impressive, so you care about him. And it's like, why? Is it just because he has more followers? But it's like his followers are made up of people who you think are like these NPCs.
Right.
So maybe that's like looking at it too far, but I'm like genuinely curious, like what does he see cool about Andrew Tate if he just sees all people as just like sheep and
Right.
like, you know what I mean? Like,
or even like, his own followers and streamer or
Yeah.
like viewers. Like I imagine like, a lot of these people, not just Clav included, but like they look down on someone who's just a consumer and not a doer. They're like, you
Yeah.
should be the one streaming. You should, but it's like,
makes no sense.
yeah, there has to be there has to be more consumers than there are creators. Like
Exactly.
That's just like sort of the way it goes,
Yeah.
if you can only be one or the other, especially if it's this strict binary.
Especially with
so.
their content style. Like it's one thing if
Yeah.
he's just posting like like 30-minute video essays a week, because then you could still say, okay, well, it's fine to maybe watch like a few video essays a week. But for his content style, which relies on people watching him for like an average of like 6 hours a day, especially, like they are going to be living the lifestyles that he sees as like pathetic,
Right,
and
exactly.
non-ascending.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's an interesting question. I think, yeah, I think for him, it's just all vain. It's just like wanting to be success in the societal markers, and then to some degree having an internal drive of just being like ultimately very famous. I mean, it seemed like, I think even to because he says within the case of alcohol, you can do like these things that have a personal detriment so long as it's to a greater aim. There's like a justification to it. And it was the same thing with a lot of stimulants. He was like he engages in a lot of stimulants so he can strain for long periods of time.
He was saying he did like meth just so he could like lose weight quickly because he was blowing up on social media, and he doesn't recommend it, but because he needed to like capitalize off his growth and stuff. Maybe I'm expecting too much meaning and self-awareness from a 19-year-old, but
Is he 19 still?
Maybe he's 20 now.
He's got to be at least 21
maybe.
If he's in the club.
That's a good point. I didn't think about that. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
But
then I don't know, because Andrew, I think in this interview was like, it was like, what were you doing at like 20 in like when you're like 13, 14? And he was like, oh, that was like during COVID. But I guess COVID has been a while now.
That did jar me. Yeah. When he said he was 13 during COVID. Yeah. I'm curious where his career will pivot, because obviously the rest of them are doing the Jew stuff now, and Clavicular seems like averse to doing politics. And,
right. Well, that's why he almost strikes me as different, because he's kind of like his own entity or character. And I almost think that like a lot of his viewership is for the irony, whereas I think that more of like the Sneeko and Myron viewership are bought into an ideology that they have. You know?
Yeah, I think he's more of like a spectacle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like whereas they're the spectacle, and it's a genuine message.
Yeah, like I feel like people actually get comfort out of like listening to Myron speak about these things, and Nick Fuentes too.
Yeah.
But no one would want to just see like, I don't know if people would watch like a 30-minute Clav video of him talking to the camera. They would obviously like the first maybe like 50 to 100 times, because it's still the spectacle of like, what is he gonna say? Because every other word he says is so like not even Gen Z, like Gen Alpha speak. Yeah. But then after that, I wonder what his like audience capture would be.
Gen Alpha speak.
Yeah.
I know.